Have you guys as adults tried to learn something brand new?
Yes.
But not something that has directions. So if I was like, hey, go build a chair and here's the directions of how to build it. Not that. I'm talking things that are more open-ended. Molly, come here. That are more open-ended.
Yes.
So, okay.
Recently, with the video thing, just video editing.
Okay.
And there's not like direct instructions, and there's a lot of ways to do it, and it's hard.
Yeah.
Like I've probably spent 10 good hours on it, and I feel like I'm not making a lot of progress. The other large one would be like building things, like a deck or something like that. I've done those things, but I feel like those are more concrete. You kind of know what they're supposed to look like at the end. The video editing stuff is very
a lot,
abstract.
Isn't it?
It really is.
Have
it really
you,
is.
Sean, tried to learn anything new?
Yeah,
you have to practice.
I don't think about it that way, but like with you saying building stuff, it would be like me being like, I'm gonna dig a huge hole in a river in my backyard and turn it into a pond.
Yes.
How do I get the electric? How do I get the pump down there? Is the water flow gonna work this way? How many gallons per hour is it gonna move? Like what this, that, how much liner, square footage, what rocks do I need?
To do it.
What rocks I mean, in that respect, yeah. But I never really thought about it that way.
It's like kind of, I don't know if it's because I'm an adult, but so I'm trying to learn something new or do something, and it takes constant repetition. I'm like, man, this is really hard. But if you think about it, the
brain's just less plastic.
The only way to get through it though is literally putting in the reps of like an hour a day, 2 hours a day, and
it's that brick. It's you got to, and it's that old thing of like, if you're building a wall, you got to put the first brick down, and then you do the second brick, and then you do the third brick. If you just never start with that brick, and there's how many people you know that have said, I'm going to do this, and they never put the first brick down. If you don't put that first brick down, it's never going anywhere.
First brick's always the hardest.
Totally.
It's an infinity step forward.
Well, there's fear, too. Like, there's always fear, because once you put that brick down, it's like, then you really
then
are
yeah, because there's
it's like, well, either I'm going to just leave that wall there with one brick, or like I'm gonna keep going, and then the keep going. It's fear.
There's endless possibilities of what direction you can go, and it's like, well, what's right and what's wrong? I have no idea.
It's hard to jump into things. Unknown is tricky. When your brain sees that, it doesn't want unknown. We're not evolved to want unknown. Unknown would be going off into the dark void and taking your family to like another area and settling down. 8,000 years ago or whatever it was.
That is so tough.
Yeah, that's evolutionarily like scary to us when we have safety, when we have, even if that safety, even if that place that we're at in our life is comparably shitty to somebody else, it's our safety. It's our place. It's our shitty place. And if you get stuck in that shitty place, so many people are just afraid to jump. There could be like, this layer of where they couldn't see 5 feet in front of them, and beyond that thing is like paradise. They don't want to go there because they're so afraid of leaving what's known. It's a hard thing, and I get it.
That is weird when you think about it, because when I hear about people, and like, especially females that are maybe like beat by their boyfriend or husband, and they stay in those relationships, it's like, why do we have that challenge to break out of this zone that we're in? But even when they're not, it's job. People are in shitty jobs, and then whatever, they feel protected by it though, and it's like, I got this salary and I got that. It's like, well, the grass isn't always greener, but if you're that miserable, most likely you need to make a change and go. But so many times we do struggle to just make that leap of faith, to just be like, wow, I'm going to try to make my life better, versus I'll just stay in this same exact lane that I've been in.
But I think that's also, like we're talking about, that is a repetition thing too. I feel like I've done a decent amount of those in my life where I just up and moved, or up and did this, or once you've done it a few times, it gets easier, but
then
it's still hard. It's still hard. Every time you think about doing something that's going to be like,
I wish I would have moved. That's one thing. Like, I always told myself in like high school, I'm getting the fuck out of here. I'm going to go to another like out of state university, and I didn't end up doing that. And for the most part, I've been somewhat local my entire life, and it's like, God, that's so lame.
Quick shout out to the sponsor of this video, Fully Loaded Tobacco-Free Chew. Check out the description of this video or the show notes to get 20% off your next order.
I still like kind of want to go somewhere else,
because
like,
you do
at some
get to a point then where it's harder.
Yeah,
once you
got
get children,
your roots
and this
down,
and that, and then your roots are kind of down like that. It is hard to just make those jumps, and sometimes they're not better. Maybe sometimes they are worse. I mean, there's times, but like I can look back at my life and think of every one of those large jumps. I don't really regret any of those things. You know, and if you did, like,
what was your stint down in NC? Was it like 2 years?
I was there for 3 years.
3 years?
And then we had a child and we moved back, and that was a big jump too. Like that was another large jump. Like moving from North Carolina to Northeast Ohio was a hard jump.
I guess the easy way to combat it is just to freaking travel more. I need to do more of that.
Yeah,
too.
you could do that. But you know, even like we started homeschooling our kids this year. Like that was a big thing.
Yeah, that's a big deal.
You know,
Oh yeah, you can't go halfway in on that.
No, you know, it's one of those things, and it's like, but I do feel like it's a muscle that I've exercised in my life. Like you've quit your job. That's a hard thing because you had this illusion of safety, and I did the same thing. You've done the same thing. We've all quit our jobs and went on to something that's different and totally unknown, and it is scary. It just is, and it gets exponentially scarier the more human beings that rely on you too.
Yeah.
You know, so it's a scary thing, but at the end of the day, I'm always like, I've never regretted anything. And when you're doing it for the right reason, when the reason is I want to make a better life for whomever, myself, my family, whomever, you're doing it for the right reason. So even if you hate it and you regret it, you can still then make another jump and fix that problem that you made. So it's like sometimes I think you got to just leap.
Yeah, I think it's Jeff Bezos that he said he came up with the term regret minimization. And one reason that he started Amazon is he was working in this job that he was in, and he was thinking, okay, what am I going to look back at in 40, 50 years and be like, I regret not doing that. And it's like, okay, well, that's actually what you should be doing. And that's how I got to the point where I was like, okay, I'm going to quit my job.
Yeah. And
I can tell you right now, while I'm quote unquote retired, I'm still working, but not in corporate America, I will never regret making that decision.
No.
Oh my gosh, the benefits are so cool. Like, for example, our buddy and his wife, they needed somebody to like get their kids on the bus in the morning for like a couple days in February, and they can text me, and I'm able to like help my friends out. But if I was working a 9 to 5, I'd be like, no, I can't do that.
Yeah.
But now I can go. Okay, you guys need me to put them on the bus. Take an hour of my morning, not a big deal. But it helps other people exponentially. So there's certain things like that. I can go visit my niece and my sisters whenever I want.
You can go on hikes every morning.
Yes, yeah, exactly. So I'm like, damn, I'm never gonna regret this point in my life, and it's really scary.
And once
first,
you've done that too, once you kind of snap out of it,
it would be real
you can't
tough
unsee
to go
what
back.
you've already seen.
really
It's one of those things you can't unsee it, because
when you can control your time, that really is the goal. Like, there's people that, you know, like there's physicians that I used to work with that would make $1 million a year, you know, but someone controls their time all day long. They're just well-paid slaves. In a way.
No, that's true. Time freedom is, I think, what everyone is really.
What's the goal?
I think it's what everyone's chasing, but I think they're chasing the wrong things to get to that point where they have the time freedom.
When you really think about it, if you wanted pure freedom, you would just, the only tricky thing is buying the land, but you would just go own a farm, have some chickens, have some cows, and live off the land, and you would be totally fine.
Homesteading is what they call it.
You would
homesteading.
Well, I just call it everything we did like before 100 years ago. But it's like, you're not relying on the government. You're not paying taxes for everything. You're not doing anything. The only tricky thing is getting the land in the first place. But once you have
watching that Yellowstone show, not to veer off, but it's that same topic, but then it like takes you back, because it's like, man, because he's stressed all the time himself. It's free, he's got his ranch, but it's like, okay, like you said, like once you have more people that roll up to you and like that you support, there's stress there. But then maintaining the land, because obviously before it was his land, the Dutton family, it was the Indians, and it was like, well, man kind of took the land. So at all times, you're gonna have the stress of keeping your land and safe, or keeping your family.
Oh no, there's stress with anything.
But to your point, I get it. It's like, if I could just go out into the country, live off the land.
Well, if you have your freedom, that's again that same idea. Like you're free to do it as you see fit.
That would be a badass.
But at the end of the day, like, you are going to work.
Well, yeah, of course, but
there's no way around working. If you don't work, someone else is working for you.
People always have this thing of work. It's like, well, I think the most miserable life would be just sitting there doing nothing.
Yeah, no, but for that person to survive, someone is working for them. So there's X amount of work that is required to live. So we need.
Yeah, I know, I get it.
We need our general things. We need food, shelter, all these things.
Yeah.
Someone's working to give us that. So if I'm not working, someone else is working to give me that said thing. And even if you take money out of the equation, and you're out there and you're You're going to be hunting. You're going to be gathering. You're going to be
providing.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to be doing things. You can't. There's no way around it. So it's like there is work. It's just the work you choose to do.
Yeah,
whatever that's going to be.
And I think knowing the life that you want to lead and matching that up with the type of work that you want to do, no matter how much you get paid. So when I was working in corporate America, the reason I never took a managerial position is because I saw what managers did in that environment. Now, I would have no problem being a manager at all, but I didn't want to do it in that environment because I was like, okay, if you take that job, you have all these people reporting to you, not a big deal, but the amount of extra time that you have to spend at work is exponentially greater. And I'm like, I would rather in this environment be like this just little peon that goes to work. But then I realized I actually don't even like that. So I switched it up. But that is one reason. And if you look at someone's resume, they're like, well, why haven't you progressed to like a managerial position? Well, I intentionally didn't want to. But on paper, that looks like, oh, this person must not be motivated, right? Or they must not be good. So
on paper,
yeah.
When explained to someone who actually can think, then they
understand.
You can explain to them however you'd like, and you can.
Well, I could have taken this promotion and gotten a $40,000 increase, but instead, that was more time that I could do what I actually am passionate about and make just as much, if not more. They'd be like, "Oh, snap!"
Yeah, it's that time freedom thing, right? It goes back
to work for the man again.
But I don't think a lot of people look at it like that. They look at, oh, I'm going to be making 20 grand more. I mean, but I'm going to have to spend 3 hours per day extra on work. But so what does that actually equate to per hour? Is that worth your time? And then they get in this rut to where, okay, they get that increase in pay, then they increase their lifestyle at the same rate, and they have to keep up with that to where they're locked in to that type of job with that many hours and that pay, and you're just screwed.
That is the most. If you took someone, and let's just say they made $100,000 a year, and you gave them a 5% raise every year for 10 years. Or you took that person and they never got a raise, but then in 10 years you gave them all that money, they would be so much better off. Because we
all do it.
Well, I always use this like analogy.
Jarrad doesn't.
A lot of the nurses that I would work with, I'd always say like they grew into their scrubs. Like I would always make this joke. I'd say like, hey, bite tight scrubs. So I felt like they just kind of filled it out.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
Whatever the hell size scrubs they were, by the end of the time I got there, they just kind of filled it out.
Yeah.
It's the same way with money. You just kind of grow into your pants. However much you have on that kind of little doling it out at once, every 2 weeks, here's your money, here's your money. You just grow into it. And if you could kind of just remove that extra growth and then hand it to me all at once, I'm still thin.
Yep. Yeah.
But now I have this. It's a hard concept, but
no, it's tough to do because we do just think about constantly growing into how much money we're making.
Well, I could buy a little bit better car now. I could afford another $50 a month in this. I could get this now. My house could be another $200 a month in payment.
Yeah.
Like, it's a bad way to think about it.
I could have 12 more Amazon packages delivered every week.
Right.
Maybe I got lucky, but when I was in corporate America, whenever I would get a raise, I wouldn't even increase my lifestyle. I would increase how much I'm saving and investing. I don't know how I got lucky enough to be able to start doing that. So it was like for 6 or 7 years, I didn't quote unquote get a raise at all.
That's beautiful.
Could I afford a car or a house that's 4 times the payment? 100%. Could I buy a car that's 5 times the payment and be fine? Absolutely. But
are you going to be happier?
Yeah. But a lot of people don't look at it like that.
Well, yeah, they're living for someone else, not themselves too. A lot of people are worried about what Tom, Dick, or Harry's thinking about their man. That's a new car. That's a nice thing. Ooh, his house is nicer than mine. Like, you live like that, and you're going to be miserable. You're going to have those. You're going to have 4 equity lines out on your house to try and make your living room look cooler for the neighbor. It's not a good way to live your life at all.
Yeah, so learning this new skill, essentially what it is you give me a phrase or a quote and I try to create it visually. Is what I make a visual representation of whatever saying you give me. That's what I'm practicing the skill of. Does that make sense?
I have no idea what you're talking about.
I can show you pictures. You want to show? Yeah. You want me to show you my examples?
Yeah.
But what I realized is
You know what he's saying?
No,
you take
like,
a phrase
I
and then
think
you try.
just change topics on us, so that's why.
Well,
we're
no, it
confused.
goes back to
Well, that's
like the
what we were talking
learning,
about
like the
beginning.
skills that you're learning.
So you're gonna say like let's just say I say living well is the best revenge. You're gonna turn that into a visual representation.
Yes. Let me show you. Now, just
Are you becoming like a human AI art program?
I mean, I guess kind of, yeah. Yeah. But what I notice is it's taking those reps every day. You're spending like an hour to do this sort of thing and visualize what you're like this phrase or whatever. And I'm realizing I'm doing it for an hour a day, and I notice when I'm sitting there for an hour, I'm actually getting a lot done. So uninterrupted work for an hour is, I think it's like a superpower, because you can get a lot done in an hour if you're not interrupted
too many distractions
or
in this world.
distracted. Let me pull this up.
That is very true. And sometimes the best thing you could do is not be working at all. Is just be doing something else and let your thoughts come to you. But that's also hard. That's something that I think a lot of people think you have to like pour hard work into things, and that is true. But if you can also just be thinking, a lot of your thoughts are going to be useful to you, but it's hard to do.
Yeah, there's time for thinking.
It's hard to
time
just be
for
quiet and sit.
actually doing
You ever
something.
just sat for like an hour and not done anything, just looked at a wall?
Yes.
No.
It's tough.
It's hard.
It's hard to do.
We're not like geared like that. Like I find like I try to do it.
Yeah.
And like I'll meditate and like my brain will just kind of go places, but I end up falling asleep.
Yeah, I would absolutely fall asleep.
Okay, so we're gonna take
No,
a
I
look
get
at
that.
this.
All right, hold on. Let me expand this a little bit. So don't make fun of me. I'm just starting.
No,
with
this is
certain
interesting.
Things. Actually, you can make fun of me if you want.
I'll make fun.
So, like here's the phrase: how we think life should be versus how it actually is.
Okay.
Now, like just taking a phrase and thinking about how you're going to visualize that it's kind of difficult because there's no directions on how to do it. You can make it look however you want, but I'm trying to work within certain guidelines. So certain color schemes, like I want to keep it very minimal as possible. So
Okay.
like this is what I came up with. And I spent, a little over an hour trying to figure this out. So like that's what I came up with, right? How we think life should be versus how it actually is, right? It's like it's
Okay.
messy. It's not perfect.
I get the
Does that make
concept
sense?
now, yeah.
So it's like this is what I'm saying. And then some of them are just they're not that good, so this is another one. This is a Seneca, Stoic philosopher quote. That so-called pleasures, when they go beyond a certain limit, are but punishments. So this is the visual that I came up with, right? So pleasures, right, increase. We think pleasures are good. They're increasing. When they go beyond a certain limit, they're nothing but punishments, right? They start decreasing.
that would be like eating.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Like eating cake, but then being forced to eat like 100 pieces of cake a day.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right.
Anything. So it's like this is what I'm talking about when it comes to.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's like it's kind
That's
of
a good visual representation. I feel like your two so far. Are
I
pretty
must
good,
have been
actually.
daydreaming. What is this? Just like a little side thing
I
you're
just
doing
want
to
to learn
make
a
your
new.
brain?
I want to learn a
Alright.
new skill, and this
Okay.
is one of those random things.
Well, you're
that's
putting
like,
words into
oh,
pictures.
this will get my creative juices
What's
flowing.
that called? Like when you have when you're on mushrooms and you can hear the things you smell and like your senses mix.
I don't know.
Like you can see the music.
Oh, I don't know what the word for that is, but I know what you're saying.
or something like that.
Yeah, you know what? I heard about somebody who had that recently,
But
where he sees words in sound.
But that's what you do on
Yeah.
psychedelics is you can see, it's like your synapses cross and you can you can see the music or you can smell the words.
That's a different one. Like
Smell the word. Actually, I've never smelled.
No. Your senses will like cross.
that's interesting.
Yeah, I haven't really experienced it.
I don't know what it is,
But I know it's a thing that people say.
So yeah, doing this, it's like sitting down and trying to figure out, okay, how am I going to visualize this? And that's when I realized, I'm like, oh, an hour of uninterrupted work, you can get a lot done. And I noticed because I have to focus, and I'm like, you can't touch your phone, you can't.
No,
get
you
on
can
the
do those
internet.
tests all the time. Like if let's just say it's like I know it's 15 minutes if I just like actually do it versus add in the normal distractions in a day, whether or not it's at home with TV, your dog, your wife, your kids, whatever it might be, or at your disposal office with people asking you questions or this coming up or this coming up. It's like, wow, that 15 minutes could end up taking an hour and a half because it's just like, yeah, what? Okay, where was I? Drives me nuts.
But the thing is, too, then when you realize, at least with me, I always realize that when I do that kind of stuff and I really focus on things, I can do so much periods of time that I really don't have that much to do.
Yeah, it's that's why I'm saying it's like it's like a superpower.
I could do a whole day's work in 30 minutes.
And then it
if
creates
I just
all these other opportunities for new ideas or whatever it might be.
Yeah,
if you can manage it correctly, it's,
right.
you're
It's like
so
when
much
you
further
just
ahead.
do it, but yeah, you're right.
And
you
I think
get so distracted.
That's a superpower nowadays. And imagine teaching our kids or kids in general about that and trying to work undistracted. They're going to be superstars in the future because you know where the general public is going to, where they're constantly.
They're growing up in a world with just.
Yeah, it's like squirrel.
Distraction.
But it's like if you can teach a kid just to do that, everyone's going to look at them and be like, you're a robot. How are you doing this?
They wouldn't even understand.
That's why a lot of people think that people like whatever we say they're on the spectrum. Maybe they're like we're the baseline, the normal ones that no, like I'm focused on this. I'm gonna get this done. I have tunnel vision with this, and we're like that's weird because some people they'll be so tunnel vision. It's like it's almost like they're not even listening to me. And it's like that's good. They're blocking you out. Your noise. Yeah. Like they can just fucking focus. I wish I could do it more, but
let's keep going. I like this.
I don't. So I've only. Yeah. Okay. So this is one. We should project our thoughts ahead of us at every turn and have in mind every possible eventuality instead of only the usual course of events. So I did a couple iterations of this because I didn't like them and I was adjusting things. But this is my initial. It's okay, right? We should have in mind at every turn every possible eventuality. So this is like the possible eventuality, right? It's nice and straight. Right, we think that okay, we know what this looks like, so we know what step A, B, and C looks like. But instead, we should have ahead of us all of these unusual course of events, so they're all random. So that was like my first one. Then I did it sideways and made it a little bit smaller, and so I was kind of playing with that one. So that one's not finished.
I would do that. I would do it like a road or an artery.
See, but there's a bunch of different
right. I like that.
That's what I like about this exercise is there's not a right way to do it, if you will,
Yeah.
So it's
well, I mean, there is a right way to do it. This is mine was right.
Yeah. Okay.
But I mean, this was close.
There's different ways to do it, and it's like okay, that makes sense. But
and it seems like each of these are like shapes. Was this like you created this yourself, or is this like already out there? Like you come up with your own concept using a triangle and these orange dots and these blue dots.
No, I'm coming up with these. So what I am.
So the graphics could be anything.
They could be anything. Now, if I could, I would hand draw them, but I'm stuck with kind of shapes and things like this. Okay. But I'm still having to work within a set of parameters that I can't go beyond. And all these are. I was starting out with Stoic philosophy philosopher quotes because that's just
how many of these did you do?
I think only like 4. Okay, so I was starting on this one last night, and I could not figure out. Anything. But this is the next one. As it is, instead of traveling, you are rambling and drifting, exchanging one place for another when the thing you are looking for, the good life, is available everywhere. So I don't know how I'm going to visualize that, but that was kind of where I left off. But it's like those people that almost like go traveling all the time. They're looking for themselves. I'm going to go travel the world. And it's like, well, I know. Okay, I get that. Like, there's nothing. It's cool to see other places, but
absolutely,
what are you actually looking for? Because if you're trying to escape, we'll say Ohio, and looking for something else, realistically, the good life is everywhere if you know how. Now, mind you, this is Stoic philosophy that's 2,000 years old.
Oh, yeah.
Isn't it? And I think that's why I like Stoic philosophy so much is the things that stand the test of time, like Stoic philosophy, it's like that's what's right. Yeah. Right? That's the real stuff in life.
2,000 years, if it lasts that long, whatever that is. And that could be, so like the teachings of Jesus Christ. Mm-hmm. Like those are good teachings.
Which, fun fact, when Jesus Christ was supposedly born, it was about the same time as this Stoic philosopher Seneca. And a lot of the teachings, they line up
similar
with,
as hell.
With Seneca.
Yeah, it's a lot of
some people think the conspiracy theory is that they took the teachings of like Seneca and implemented them into this guy named Jesus for Christianity.
Hey, why not?
I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there, but
it's a fun little parallel.
Conspiracy theory.
Well, 2,000-year-old conspiracy. Do what you may with it.
But no, that is like that saying is interesting because it is true. Like there's people that they just are always looking, and like they don't spend any time like just stop, like think about it for a second. Like what do you want out of this? That's the beautiful thing. Like we do live in a time where you can kind of do whatever you want.
And do you already have it? You're just not recognizing it or appreciating it.
And so many people work on all these other things, but like their relationship with their family is like a fucking disaster. It's like
Yeah.
I've been doing this. I've been doing transcendental meditation for this and that, and I do it 4 hours a day, and it's like, yeah, but like you hate your mom.
Maybe try to figure that out.
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
maybe like just take 5 minutes out of your day and call your mom and be like, hey, can we talk?
Mm-hmm.
Like every relationship you have is a disaster, but you're worried about working on yourself. I'm always like, whenever I hear someone who's always working on themselves, I'm like, uh-oh.
Here we go.
Uh-oh. If you're going to tell me all about it, that's not good. And like every one of the relationships in their life is just a train wreck.
Disaster.
They can't hold a job. They can't do anything. They cannot function in society, but they're working on themselves.
Yeah.
Always trouble.
Yeah. So this is what I'm working on. It's tough, but I think it's important to continue to try to do these sorts of things, right? As you get older, it's probably going to be a little bit tougher as you get older, but doing it and getting after you finish, like, man, I feel really good about that. And you learn quite a few
Did you bring
things.
this whole thing full circle with these? Is this what you're trying to learn that you started off with?
That's why you were like, why are you talking about that? And I was like, I'm bringing it back to the beginning.
And this is
so I can show an example, right?
Yeah, this is
because you were like,
different.
what are you
that's the
talking
thing.
about?
Learning a new skill can be that wide ranging.
It can be
you
anything.
can be talking about building a pond, or you can be talking about turning words into visualization, like whatever it is. But yeah, I think if you don't continue to learn, that's not a good scenario.
And it's
either.
tough. It feels very uncomfortable while you're doing it, but it's like as long as you just put in those reps day in and day out, it's like you're laying those bricks to build that wall.
But if you
It's
stop,
repetition.
then
Yeah, like you said, you're learning video editing. Dude, when I first learned video editing, I knew nothing. Like, if you go look at my original YouTube videos, you'd be like, these are trash. But if you look at them now, I've had so many people compliment. They're like, how are you doing all those graphics?
Yeah.
And I'm like, guys, if you watch each of my videos, it's slowly over the years.
you're learning. You're learning inside of learning.
And that's important, right?
One thing's the graphics and whatnot, but yeah, the science that you were talking about a couple weeks ago, just like knowing like when you see those more inflection points and like when an audience is looking and understanding what gets people going and those sorts of things, it's like, all right, there's a real science to that YouTube stuff that you really need to understand. The graphics do make stuff better, but you've done a good job. Congrats.
It's nuts. It's yeah. So keep learning.
Yep.
Be the best you can be. Thanks for checking out this podcast. Please make sure to hit that thumbs up button before you go. If you want to watch us continue the conversation, then click on this video to your left next.